Hi, this is attorney Tara Hutchinson with Pittsburgh Family Law Services. I want to take some time today to talk about a subject that comes up very frequently as a concern, and that is how men are treated in the family court process versus how women are treated. I hear a lot of concerns about this from husbands and fathers who call my office, that they're afraid that the system is outright stacked against them. They're afraid to proceed with a divorce or a custody case because they've heard so much about how men get the short end of the stick, the entire system is stacked up against them, and the woman is always at a disadvantage. So I want to talk a little bit about why it may feel that way, why it might feel like men are at a disadvantage in family court versus women. I first want to start out by saying that there is no law on the books which favors women over men. It does not exist. I would be very surprised if any family court judge in Pennsylvania actually admitted to favoring one gender over the other. There is no official rule. In fact, when it comes to custody cases, gender is outright excluded as a factor for determining the best interests of the child. So officially, it's not on the books. So you don't have to worry about being up against an official law. That said, there are reasons why men will feel disadvantaged, and I want to talk about what those are. So, as everyone's probably aware, in the family court process, you have two overarching issues. You have the financial issues on one end, which is the division of property, spousal support, alimony, child support, all the money stuff. And then you have the custody issues, which are focused on where your children will be living. Will they live primarily with one parent? Will they be sharing time equally with both parents? That's the custody side. So, taking the financial matters first, it is a reality in Pennsylvania that if you are the higher earning spouse, whether you are a man, a woman, or if you're in a same-sex marriage, if you are the higher earning spouse and you are the one who acquired the vast majority of the assets, it is getting a divorce is definitely going to be a financial hit. And the reason is, if you're the one who's acquired all of the assets or the vast majority of the assets throughout your marriage, in order to ensure that both of you receive an equal split or an equitable division of the marital estate, which is going to be at least 50-50, you will, in all likelihood, have to divide up some of your individual assets, such as a 401k or an IRA. There just is no way around it. There is not a scenario where the higher earning spouse who acquired all of the assets is and has all of the income is going to walk away with more than 50% of the marital estate. It just doesn't happen, and the scenarios in which it could conceivably occur are so fact specific and so rare that you, for planning purposes, you should expect you are very much not the exception, and you will be dividing up a large amount of your individual assets because Pennsylvania still considers them part of the marital estate, even if you only hold them in your sole name. So a lot of men feel that this affects them more than it affects women, and in general, right now, that is probably accurate, because in general men are still out earning women and still acquiring more of the assets. It doesn't mean that men earn everything and women earn nothing. I'm not saying that at all, but they've acquired more of it. This is appearing to change a little bit, particularly with younger couples who are going through the divorce process. But in general, it is still very common that the husband out earns the wife and acquired more of the assets during the time that they were married. So that is a large part of why men will feel disproportionately impacted by the family court process, because even though the end result is each person gets 50% of the marital estate, in practice what that means is one person had to transfer over more of their individual assets. So it feels like it's more of an individual hit. On the custody end, there are reasons why men will feel at a disadvantage, and a lot of why they will feel this way is because they will say to me, I've always been involved with my children, I have great relationships with them, why don't I have shared custody? Why are our children mostly living with their mother? A lot of times the reason why this ends up happening is because the parents just live a little too far apart. If parents live about 45 minutes away from each other and they have school-age children, it's not that 50-50 is impossible, particularly during the summer, but during the school year, it's very difficult to sustain that long term because it becomes a lot of transportation and driving back and forth, both for the parents and for the children involved. So if there's a situation where both parents are more or less equal, they love their kids, they're both involved with their kids, and they're both completely capable of caring for their kids, but they live far enough apart where 50-50 just is not a realistic arrangement. Something has to break the tie. And a lot of times what the tiebreaker is that one parent is just slightly more familiar with what their children's needs are. In other words, who's the parent who makes the medical appointments, who goes to the parent-teacher conferences, who helps the kids complete schoolwork, those types of things. And very often in families just get into a routine where it's more one parent who took the lead in those types of aspects of parenting. It doesn't mean that the other parent wasn't involved at all. It just means that one parent did a little more. And again, when you're looking at a tiebreaker, because both parents are great, which is so common, something has to give, and that is very often where it falls. And in my experience, a lot of times, by default, it was the mother who just had slightly more involvement in the children's day-to-day activities. So that's where it can feel like women have more of an advantage on the custody end. Now, in a situation where both parents are completely capable of caring for their children, there are no concerns with drugs or alcohol or anybody's mental state. In that situation, if the parents reside close by, especially if they reside in the same school district. Very often, judges and hearing officers want to see parents exercising 50-50 custody. They support that. They think that it is in children's best interests to spend equal amounts of time with both parents. So I have not found in practice that there is an overarching feeling that children are inherently better with spending more time with their mother versus with both parents equally. And of course, if there are situations where say the mother does have an unresolved drug or alcohol or mental health concern or safety concern, judges do award primary custody to the father. And I have argued custody cases in front of judges, making that same argument that the children are better in father's primary custody, and I have received that result for my clients. So there is not a preference or a thought that children are inherently better with their mother. Again, it tends to feel that way in a situation where the parents are both wonderful, but something has to tip the scales in favor of primary custody, because shared custody just isn't realistic at this point in time. Another thing that I see happen a lot in custody cases is that very often fathers will sign custody consent orders, often without legal representation, and they consented to, or they agreed to having minimal amounts of custody, like fathers who live only about 20 minutes away, and there are no real concerns about their parenting or anything. They will agree to only seeing their children on alternating weekends. And I don't know why a lot of fathers will do this, but that is something that I see quite frequently. And once you've already consented to something like that, then you get into a status quo. And it's not that you can never modify a custody order. On the contrary, you can always modify a custody order. But when you're asking for more time, when you're asking for 50-50 in a situation where you have primarily exercised every other weekend and that's it, the burden is on you to establish that moving to 50-50 is in your children's best interests. So I highly encourage anyone who is concerned about whether they are spending an appropriate amount of time with their children, whether a marital estate is being divided fairly. I highly encourage anybody with those concerns to contact a lawyer. Particularly when it comes to custody, I find that a lot of men do not even really understand that they are very much entitled to ask for shared custody. So if you are in that situation where you have separated and you're about to go through the custody process, I absolutely recommend that you contact a lawyer to talk about what type of arrangement is realistic. Because even if 50-50 is not realistic at this point in time, number one, you could end up with far more than just a couple of weekends a month, okay? And secondly, you can modify a custody order in the future depending on how everything changes. So I hope that this was informative. I hope that this helps to clarify some of some of the reasons why it may seem like men are at a disadvantage in the family court process. And again, if you have a family law need, I highly encourage everybody to contact a family law attorney. Thank you for watching. Please click subscribe if you liked what you saw. And until next time, take care.